Looks good.
Looks good. How about now? We all set? All righty. So just a quick introduction. My name is Brian Bates. I'm my degree program is Applied Technical Leadership with a focus in organizational culture and change and electrical engineering technology. So just real quick, my project that I have here, just a quick statement on employee engagement with an inclusive culture. So through communication and learning, we can increase employee engagement. This creates an inclusive culture by providing a healthy work environment that will benefit the people in the business. So that overall, that's my goal, is to create an inclusive culture that leads to a healthy work environment. So I developed an onboarding class to be presented to a contract workforce on their second day of employment in order to kind of jumpstart this employee engagement and add to a healthy work environment. Let's go through here. So why create an onboarding class for contractors? Our L3 Harris employees, if you're hired directly, there's many hours of class. There's probably 20 hours of class, learning classes. The onboarding's a lot more engagement, a lot more time is put into it. Our contract workforce, these are entry level employees. So when they come in through the contract agency, they'll go through the HR items, just some real basic things. They get their badge, they get their PPE equipment. They go over some safety items, and then they're pretty much just dropped off into the factory. I guess I should probably give a little background of where I work. I work at L3 Harris Communications. We make secure communications equipment for mostly DoD and international customers for military communications equipment. So just a general poll from Gallup State of the Global Workplace. I think this was from 2018. They found that 85% of employees are not engaged, 15% are engaged. So pretty much all that means are, people really aren't happy at work. They don't like what they're doing, just in general. And there's ways to jumpstart that and to change that. And that's what I want to do with the contract workforce that's coming to L3 Harris. So the solution: create an onboarding class with critical organizational information, and design a tour. That's a big part of it, was a tour that will contribute to a positive learning culture. So I have the image on the right there. That's from Lencioni. He's a subject matter expert in organizational health. That's from his book, The Advantage. So 4 main steps in that: build a cohesive leadership team, make sure everybody's aligned, and then it's just passing the information down. Communication, obviously, with everything is huge. Create clarity, over communicate clarity, and reinforce clarity. And that's kind of what my onboarding class hopes to do. The class with the tour is just create clarity, communicate it, and reinforce it. I just want to tell just a quick story about one of the contractors that started recently in September. This just kind of reinforced that a class, something like this, needed to be made. She comes up to me. She's a little teary-eyed. She asked if she could talk. I said, okay, let's figure this out. Let's find a huddle room. I grabbed her production coordinator, and we went and we chatted for a little bit. But pretty much she told me, she goes, I'm out of parts. I don't know who to go to. I've been here for a few days and I've gotten in trouble twice. I don't know what's going on. And that kind of hit me a little bit. And when she did start the previous week, or the week earlier, it was one of those days. It's first thing in the morning. They come in, they do their orientation with the contract agency on a Monday, dropped off in our department at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday. Just that morning was just crazy. Fires everywhere, production line down situations, running around trying to get people situated, get them with their trainers. maybe just a quick tour of, here's a bathroom, here's the break room, your breaks are at this time, and then just kind of throwing them in the department. So she didn't really get all of the information she probably should have had at that time, and it really did show. I'm very glad that she came and talked to me, because we got it figured out. I explained she wasn't in trouble. I knew there's a couple of instances that she was talking about, but I got to explain to her that she was never in trouble on anything. She told me, I don't know who the bald guy is. The bald guy keeps saying things to me. The bald guy is actually my boss. So she didn't even know, the kind of the management chain there. And she didn't know who her production coordinator was, the guy, Greg, that we brought in there. So I told her, okay, here's my number. Here's Greg's number. Greg's your production coordinator. You need anything, he's your first line of defense. You can usually find him here. Just kind of explained a bunch of things that she should have been told previously. So I'm glad she came to me after that was all figured out. Good. She was good to go, but it definitely could have been avoided, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So just a few terms. Organizational health is it's basically being able to align around common values, a common mission, a common vision, and be able to change when change is needed. A few things that make up organizational health is your culture. Very complex thing to try to figure out a company's culture, especially a big corporation, with thousands of employees. There's going to be subcultures everywhere. It truly does start from the top and gets cascaded out and pushed down. To the right, I have Edgar Schein's model. He's another subject matter expert in organizational culture. And basically, culture is made up of three things: your artifacts, the things you see and touch. Like at L3Harris, our artifacts would be our improvement wall with all of the people's pictures and a list of all their improvements. There is we have a service wall with the 5 main categories of the military, as the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines, and Coast Guard. And so it has each one of their flags up and just pictures of everybody who was in the military. Kind of just gives an idea of what we do and why it's important. The espoused values are values that we talk about. L3Harris values: integrity, respect, excellence, and assumptions and beliefs. So that's probably what your real culture is. It's how do people interact day to day with each other? How do they go about their day-to-day business? How do they conduct themselves? How do they treat each other? Just all those things combined can give an idea of what your culture is. And employee engagement, that's basically the level of enthusiasm and dedication a worker feels towards their job. If you're not engaged, if you're not happy, you're probably not going to share your ideas. You're not going to put your best foot forward. You're not going to do all that you can do within your workplace.
Ryan, you've got 4 minutes. 4
minutes. All right. Real quick, this is the class that I go through, so just some basic information on there. This is kind of the management chain, which Shay didn't know her first day. Director, manager, who our support staff is. This is kind of the factory broken down. How what you do contributes to the overall goals. And this is very important. So I'll read through this. Who are we and what we do? We're the Liberty Focus Factory. We make quality man-pack radios that make a difference. We're mindful of L3Harris values. 2 very important things here that I want to get across to the group when they first start are the L3Harris values and keep your eyes open for improvements. So I kind of explained a little bit here to the group, to the class when I do the onboarding class. Our L3Harris values and E3, continuous improvement, just a simple improvement project on the right. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Somebody put some magnets in the bottom of a container so things wouldn't pop out. So, and of course, the opportunities. I want to get people excited. I want them engaged. I want them to know that there's things that they can do to help themselves out, which will of course help the company out. I ask if there's any questions. One of the first questions I always get asked is, how do I get hired? So that's good. They're at least interested. And then we take the tour, and the tour, I talked about the service wall. I talked about the continuous improvement pictures and all the descriptions of all the projects. And I give a little test before the class, and this was kind of an eye opener. Like, people didn't know they didn't even know their job title when they're first getting dropped off in here, let alone, the important things: production goals, safety, quality. They didn't know what focus factory they worked in. This is just all things just to get them assimilated they should know before they even hit the factory floor. So this is out of 10 people. So I did 2 classes of 5 that this is based off of. I'm still continuing to do the class, but this is off of 10 people. So after the first survey, I figured out, what I want to talk about and some very important things they should know that first day. And then after taking the quiz or the survey after, like, pretty good results. Mostly everybody got it there. So yeah, questions?
Okay, that sounds like a wonderful project, Brian. And actually, you came in 1 minute under, so I'm sorry if I hurried you up, but I think we get the idea. So a question about what the clientele is for your onboarding workshop.
So the clientele, it's all entry-level employees.
Right, but I mean, you say contract employees. So are these people that are coming to work for a week, or are these people coming to work with the possibility of being extended and then indeed becoming full-time employees?
Yes, it's temporary to hire. So most contracts last between 6 months and a year. We kind of start evaluating after 6 months.
Okay, all right, okay. What's the rate of success? What is the past rate of success turning a contract employee into a full-time employee?
That's a good question. I want to say I don't have the numbers offhand, but I want to say it's probably between 50 and 75%. We have, at one time in our factory at J Rock Jefferson Road Operations Center, we have 400 contractors at a rolling time. People are leaving and people are staying and getting converted. So probably a little bit more than half to 3/4.
So this is such an obvious idea, and it's such a great idea that I can't imagine the company, and maybe you or maybe somebody else, not doing it in the future. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer to do this.
Yeah, no, it kind of got some wheels. We've been real big on org culture and health within the last few years. L3Harris employees, they kind of do get this type of treatment when they start, but nothing for the contract workforce. And I think we might lose some good people, honestly, because they just don't know of some of these things, and that we just can't get them, engaged and involved. I've met with the staffing agency, and she's all about it. She goes, that's great. She's even thinking about taking over some of it and using some of my slides. But I kind of want to do it for my factory, just so I'm sure that they get the treatment that I would expect for them to get. But I've been in contact with HR, and there's talk about rolling it out across all the other departments, kind of doing a similar thing where they have a class. We probably spend like 10 minutes talking in a conference room, and then the important part is the tour and just kind of explaining what's going on, and people have a pretty good idea of what's going on, within their first couple of days there.
Given the idea that you're hiring these contract workers for up to a year, 6 months to a year, it's amazing to me that nobody came up with this before. I mean,
no. Honestly, I know it does seem crazy to me now. Now that I'm doing it, that before we just drop people in these positions and just expect them, to be engaged and to put their best foot forward, and it's kind of nuts to me. But talking to the other supervisors across the way, they're catching wind of it and they want to see what I'm doing, and I'm think that they'll be doing something similar real soon here.
So long term, this is my last point. Long term, if you do stay engaged with this, or even if you just watch how it evolves from the side, it would be a good idea to look at the past conversion of contract employees into full-time employees in the past, pre this orientation workshop and look at it in the future and see if there's an effect on that particular statistic.
Yeah, no, I definitely, sort of snapped the line before doing this, paid attention, took notes as to what the environment is, and I'll definitely be keeping my eyes on it going forward.
Great. Well, I thought that was a great presentation. I think it's a great project. So I'm going to pass it over to Meg now, though.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I'll definitely echo Stephen's sentiments here. I really like how you've identified a real world problem and then are going about trying to come up with a solution. And on top of that, that you have a company behind you that's supporting that.
Yeah.
Because I think there are probably a number of work environments where someone comes up with an idea like this, but it isn't necessarily well received. So I think this is a great opportunity. So my question is, can you provide a little more context? So I see that you work at Harris on what your role is.
My role, my actual title is associate manager. I'm basically a frontline supervisor. So I have anywhere from 40 to 60 direct reports. Basically a production supervisor. I just see that the radios from the start, from the boards all the way to the final product, get built, tested, and delivered to the back.
Okay, so will you have an opportunity? I like the quiz that you provided. Will you have an opportunity to maybe circle around and do another quiz like that, maybe 3 months, 6 months out? And could you incorporate something about, whether it's a continuum or a number to indicate, how they feel on the job? So something that is measuring, how confident or how engaged they feel, that you can then, have some real tangible results at the back end.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So we do have pulse surveys, employee engagement surveys that are put out by the corporation. Just, I think, a random sampling, maybe once every quarter to every 2 quarters. And I know it is broken down by department, I believe, and it would be interesting to see that score going forward. But yeah, but for as far as sometimes we don't always get to see how our department does. Maybe some managers above me know. I'll definitely be trying to find that information. But yeah, even something on my own, I could put my own little pulse survey together and kind of canvas the department. I like that. I'll definitely have to keep thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. Obviously, you have some real investment with your own people. So it would be great for you to have really tangible results to show management, the difference between how other individuals are feeling versus your pod. So this is really interesting. I think it's, like you mentioned, I think it's definitely got legs. What are next steps for you?
The next steps for me? I'm going to continue on for school. I'm looking at the MML program, the Masters in Manufacturing Leadership. Just doing what I can at work, apply for openings, get experience, work with my mentors, work with the people that report to me, and just doing the best I can.
Fantastic. Well, I really enjoyed it. Best of luck, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And we're now going to go to Erin.
Should I just share my screen then?
Yes, please.
You guys see that? Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so my name is Erin Gardner. I am going to be doing my presentation on mainstream educators working with the deaf and hard of hearing. My major right now is, my concentrations are English and history, and then I'm minoring in deaf cultural studies and ASL. So I'm kind of taking my minor, and that's what I'm focusing my project on today. All right, so a little brief summary, my project is an educational video intended for an audience of hearing mainstream high school teachers, basically to give them a synopsis of what to expect by having a deaf or hard of hearing student in their classroom. So my video explains and gives a background on technology that they may use or difficulties they may face, and then how that teacher can improve and provide equal accessibility to all their DHH students. Understanding these difficulties that the student may face in the classroom, the teachers will gain a positive insight on what they can do to help their students succeed. All right, a little background information just for my hearing audience today. In the United States, there are an estimated 308,648 deaf or hard of hearing children between the ages of 5 and 17. Approximately 75,000 of those students are on IEPs, and then roughly 20.8% are in specialized schools and programs for deaf and hard of hearing students. And what these specialized schools are schools for the deaf where students use and teachers educate using ASL, American Sign Language. The remaining 77.4% of these 75,000 deaf and hard of hearing students who have an IEP in K through 12 programs are mainstreamed in general education. And what an IEP is an individualized educational plan that is designed for kids with disabilities, which explains their needs and goals for the school year. And then more than 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. This is a very important statistic because many parents who are having a deaf child for the first time may not have access to all of the available services, options, and resources. As a hopeful teacher of the deaf, I wanted to provide a video for hearing mainstream educators to get a better understanding of what their deaf student might need in a classroom setting. For someone with no previous experience working with deaf students, it may be very difficult for them. They might not fully understand or know what to provide them for their academic success. The intention is to show these teachers at this video at the beginning of the school year so that they are set with success from the start. And these students can attend this meeting just to give more specification on what they personally need for their own success. Individually meet with mainstream teachers of the deaf students, show them what the video is and explain, here's what you need to do, and this is what you need to know about me. This is a short snippet of part of my video that I have created. All right, so why am I doing this? So mainstream environments propose a lot of struggles for deaf and hard of hearing students integrating into hearing environments, self-advocacy skills. In this environment, students are forced to constantly have to stand up for themselves and what they need in a classroom. And for kids sometimes at a young age, this might be very, very difficult for them to do. not following an IEP. An IEP, when teachers don't follow a student's IEP guidelines, it causes a very big breakdown in trust, success, and accessibility. And limited access to taught information. And when one's education is not taught in a way that is designed for their own needs, it hinders success to the information that is being taught. And then cultural understanding. From coming from a family background, either of deaf or hearing, every deaf student comes from a different background, possibilities deaf or hearing. Behavioral tendencies or attention getting. This could be an example of like foot stomping, flickering lights, shoulder tapping. And this is important to know. So somebody who is hearing or somebody who doesn't have experience with a deaf student does not get confused, startled, or offended by any of these behaviors. And this increases a better student-teacher relationship. And then for accessibility is extremely important. Academic student success basically depends on this. And then how will this benefit me? As a future DHH teacher, I will be involved in advocating for my students in terms of their mainstream classes. Having made this video promote a sense of deaf culture and environment of hearing people. This helped me gain a different perspective on the diversity of deaf experiences. Through my interaction with all of my peers, I learned of their different educational experiences growing up as a DHH student. Understanding, accepting, and encouraging that each deaf student has a unique experience promotes a positive sense of identity. And then this is another snippet from the video. All right, working with my peer. How do I get back to that? All right, working with my peers. Some of the people that I have spoken with and interviewed include one named Sheila Gardner. She was hearing. She's an elementary educator with experience with mainstream deaf and hard of hearing students and also has 2 deaf daughters. Carolina Matos is a hard of hearing RIT student. She has educational experience in both deaf and mainstream environments in employment and educational. Working with these peers offered me different perspectives in terms of students and teachers. Their personal experiences I couldn't exactly share in the video, but their input and shared experience helped shape my project and video into a more inclusive definition to fit a wider range of students who are deaf and hard of hearing. Taking this whole project, it was kind of very difficult to put like, I already know this knowledge, kind of put it to the side. It was kind of hard to do that. Just to open my eyes to realize what other deaf and hard of hearing students face and what difficulties they go through. However, after hearing these experiences, I know it'll benefit me in the long run while I'm trying to meet my goal of becoming a teacher for the deaf. with this as my career, I think the most important thing to remember is that every student's needs, backgrounds, and experiences are completely different and unique to themselves. And then that was really exciting.
Meg, would you like to go first with Erin?
Sure, definitely. So I really enjoyed that, Erin. I think that the concept of putting together a video in particular, could be really effective. Do you have a sense through your research what type of onboarding typically happens for mainstream educators if they are going to have a deaf or hard of hearing student in their classroom?
Yeah, I did speak with one of the peers, Sheila Gardner, about that. She said the school district that she works in does have a solid group per se of deaf and hard of hearings to go through that whole district, elementary through middle school and high school. She said they do get a kind of basic rundown saying, here's what these students are. They might have an interpreter, but she said they don't really get any ASL background. They don't get any deaf culture awareness, nothing as deep as that. It's just kind of a very surface, okay, you're gonna have a deaf student in their class. This is their interpreter. And that's pretty much it.
Wow, okay. So I guess my other question is, will you have the opportunity to take this video out for a test drive and put it in, I mean, do you have some contacts or a district that is willing to let you utilize something like this so that you can then do another iteration and make improvements?
Yeah, I'm fingers crossed on that because my old high school district, my old deaf and hard of hearing teacher actually came to RIT. So I had kind of still have close connection with him. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to send him my video and see if that would be a useful tool for them to use in terms of giving the mainstream teachers in that school a better understanding of deaf culture.
I think that's great. And I think that, getting a couple different perspectives, including mainstream teachers that don't have any experience, that's kind of your audience here.
Yeah.
I think would be really useful. And what a fabulous artifact for you to have as you're going out and looking for a job, that this is a project and a deliverable that you have. So fantastic job. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Remind me, are we talking about the Guilderland School District? Is that the school district you grew up in?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Did you grow up in the Guilderland School District?
No, I went to the Parkway School District. Okay.
So this project rings a lot of bells for me. In Guilderland is in Albany, and when I first started in deaf education, it was in a second grade class. And this second grade class teacher, it was the very first time that any deaf students had been mainstreamed. And there was no introduction, none. But this was 40 years ago. But when you say that, when you just described the experience that your own teacher went through and said, we do this and this, but we don't do this and that. So that's 40 years, and you'd think that things might have improved a lot more than that. So I agree, it's absolutely vital that mainstream teachers get this information. Mm-hmm. So you've hit on a great project, and I think you could expand it out a little bit. I obviously haven't seen the whole of your video, but you could make this, you could develop it professionally, and I think you might find a market for it. I have a question. Across the bottom of the slides, it said renderforest.com. What's renderforest.com?
Oh, like on the video?
Yeah.
That was the website that I used to be able to create that video. Okay,
I see. Well, there's a lot of cute touches to it. I enjoyed watching it. I like the dancing question mark. That was a good feature. Okay, I think that I don't think I have any other questions except to say that I think similarly to Brian's, this is a really good practical idea that, and we use the phrase with Brian, that has legs. I think this idea might have legs too. I don't know if such a thing exists already. You'd hope so, but maybe it doesn't. So I definitely think you can take this further if you're so inclined. And as Meg said, even if you don't take it further, it clearly is going to help you, you know, in the entry employment market. Anyway, thanks very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And with that, let's go to Lucas.
Morning, guys. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Cool. So I work at Foundry, which is a Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency staking company, and I lead the engineering team there. So over the past year, we've been building out the business, and we're fortunate enough to be part of one of the largest crypto VCs in the space, Digital Currency Group. So we have a good amount of funding from them, and we really operate the infrastructure for them. So I'm gonna give a quick intro into like what the business actually is, because it'll relate pretty well into the project that I'm doing. So essentially, when you are mining, which you guys are probably more familiar with, you physically plug in machines and you mine Bitcoin with it or other cryptos. When you're staking, you also run computers or servers that operate some node or program running on top of them, and then you bond tokens to that node to generate yield and validate the chain. So our job and what I lead is actually operating all of those nodes and servers so that you can stake. So we operate like 200 or 300 servers, and we do this across like 10 to 20 different protocols. And the way that we're positioned is we operate this infrastructure, like this baseline infrastructure for Digital Currency Group as our VC, as well as other institutions. So like large banks, you know, like Goldman Sachs, stuff like that, other VCs, hedge funds, et cetera. So we're working with large institutional amount of money to stake against them. So the reason that my Capstone project is a hackathon, and why it fits so well in with where I'm at and where our company's at, is currently we invest in a project, right? Say there's a new protocol coming out. Like a good example from the list up here would be like Near. So Near launched like 3 years ago. We seeded an investment in them. We have a few other sister companies like Genesis, which is a major like OTC trading firm. And then we operate the infrastructure for it, right? So we kind of cover every single facet that you need to trade a token, buy, sell a token, utilize a token, stuff like that. But what we're missing is actively building projects on top of these protocols, right? So, and this kind of gets into the next slide. Oh. So most people are probably familiar with blockchains just being able to transfer like assets and value, right? Like if you have Bitcoin, I can send Bitcoin to you and you can send it to me. That's pretty much it. But when Ethereum was invented, it allowed for what is known as smart contracts, which basically allow you to build, right now it's generally any financial primitive, but you can really program whatever you want. So on like Ethereum, as well as some of these other smart contract based chains, you can build like a money market, or like a lending and borrowing protocol. You can build decentralized exchanges. You can build order books. You can really build option platforms. Like you can really build anything you want that deals with money at the moment. I mean, you can use blockchains for supply chain and stuff like that as well. But the focus from where we're at is more so on the financial side. So a lot of these new protocols that we're investing in, we're allowing people to trade them and support them from the infrastructure level. But like Near and Solana don't necessarily have a lot of these financial primitives that we've seen built on Ethereum over the past 4 or 5 years. So like Near is missing a money market. And when these protocols are missing something kind of as basic as a money market, like money doesn't flow into the ecosystem and people aren't actively using the chain besides just transferring value between people, right? And what we really want is value to accrue on the chain, because then that'll kind of lift up all of our businesses as well, right? So I decided that running and operating a hackathon is kind of the first trial this year, and hopefully we continue this like quarterly or yearly at Foundry, with this serving as the base, would be helpful for a few reasons. So one, a lot of students probably aren't, and with the specific target of like college age students or people right out of college, mostly because they're quick learners. And they generally want to get into some new industry. And like we've seen a lot of like young kids, even like high schoolers, dropping out and dropping into Web3 or blockchain, right? And even if they don't drop out, they're still interested in building in crypto, because it's so fast paced and there's a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of room for growth. So specifically targeting them to build and operate platforms on top of these new chains kind of was the target for this hackathon. So the hackathon is gonna, like other people's projects have already gone on, my project won't start till December 1st. And it's gonna be 2 weeks long, so that with the idea that like the first week is generally people learning the platform that they're gonna be using because it's brand new, right? Like obviously a lot of programming concepts kind of like map to programming that they've probably done in the past, right? Like Solidity is JavaScript based. If you're going to be building on Near or Solana, it's Rust based. So if you're familiar with those languages, it's not too hard to get started, but some concepts might be new or unfamiliar to people. And it's also async and online. So we would, most hackathons are probably like a 24 to 48 hour like mad sprint over the weekend. But from my perspective, when I was planning this, like I don't know if a 24 to 48 hour mad sprint is the best way to learn something and build something like quality. So that's why it's gonna be online and async. Online to open it up to anybody that wants to develop on it, not specifically just RIT. So we've also been targeting students at Cornell, NYU, UB, and a few other colleges. I think Berkeley, and maybe some other colleges out in California. We've been targeting specific blockchain groups, since the paths that you can develop on are kind of targeted on specific chains like Near and Solana and LivePeer and Filecoin. And yeah, so and we'll go through the site after this. There's also like within like the Discord, there'll be like office hours with some team members, or members from my team, since we're all pretty familiar with developing on each of these platforms, as well as operating infrastructure for them. I've also provided a ton of developer resources, which I'm gonna go through now. So I made a GitHub repo here, with a lot of resources and kind of like getting started guides to build on the platform, since one, it's either between the platforms, it's either extremely well documented by the team or extremely poorly documented. So I kind of aggregated those, and then I also aggregated examples and stuff for it. So there's just like a quick intro on the hackathon and what chains you're kind of allowed to build on, although you can really build on whatever you want. So like, you guys probably haven't really heard of any of these, but like all of these chains are similar to Ethereum, where you can build whatever you want on it through smart contracts. And then there's also developer resources in each protocol section. So I've kind of listed out the documentation, some building resources, and then some examples on GitHub where people can, like, for example, this one would be like wrapped Filecoin. So here people can physically look at the contracts that people wrote. And if they want, they can like fork it and use it and build something similar. And yeah, so I've done that for every single protocol and been directing people to that. And then the last note is we have 3 prizes that Foundry is directly sponsoring, 5K, 5K, and 2,500. And the prizes are for the overall prize. So across any of the chains, you know, whatever's the best, judged by us. The second place prize, and then the one I'm kind of pretty excited about is the best use within blockchain education. So like, a lot of this stuff is pretty either complicated or just like not really well written, documented. People don't fully understand a lot of it. So while the first 2 prizes are more programming focused and like actually like building out like some project, the second one, or the blockchain education one, can also be that. But you could also just write documentation for a protocol, right? Like a lot of protocols might have decent documentation, but some of them literally might be it might be like an insanely cool project, you know, like an options platform on Near, but have literally 0 documentation. And if anyone wanted to build or integrate with the project, they would have to, you know, read all of the source code and read the specific comments within the code. So if you literally just went out and wrote like a 2,000 to 5,000 word documentation for it, in my opinion, that's really helpful for future developers, and that would probably warrant winning the blockchain education prize. So the actual website for the hackathon, and where I've been directing everybody across clubs and colleges to go to, is this foundry.devfolio.com. So you can kind of see like our Discord, and like this is our main website. And similar to the GitHub repo, it kind of gives a brief overview and all of the projects. All of these are some initial development resources. It links to the GitHub where I added in all of those other resources into the READMEs. And then it gives a overview of all of the prizes here. And yeah, so that's pretty much it from my side. So, I mean, like, it hasn't actually gone on yet, so I don't really have like, you know, much feedback or how it actually went. But it's looking to be like it'll be pretty good. Everyone's pretty excited.
So Lucas, I'm not going to lie. I hope you don't give us a quiz on what you just said. I am not familiar with almost everything that you said. However, let's assume that I'm a student at, I don't know, you mentioned Berkeley. I'm a student at Berkeley and I get to hear this. I'm not sure how I would have gotten to hear it, but I did. So what do I do as a student in order to get and participate in this hackathon?
Yeah. So on the website here, like this is because I'm logged in, but like, let's see. Oh, you guys, can you see this private tab or no? Probably not.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
this go to dashboard would change to like apply.
Okay.
And then you literally just put in like your email just so I can contact you. And that's pretty much it. It will also have like a form for like where to submit your project when like the deadline hits. And the way that you submit the project is you literally just like post a link to GitHub where your code was, or like if you're hosting docs, just, you know, a list of the website.
And I'm doing this as an individual, not as a part of a team.
Actually, we've had a few teams register. Yeah, it's you know, either or.
So what would be an example? Maybe you covered this, but if you did, I missed it. What would be an example of a project this student from Berkeley might do?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned a little bit, but like more specifically, I guess. So Near is a smart contract chain. That's very cool. But there's literally almost 0 applications built on top of it. There's a few just like test applications that like some like devs put together. But ideally you build a money market on it. So like you could lend and borrow tokens, similar to like a bank. It'd be cool. Like I've seen a few money markets on Ethereum where like you can build your own like interest rate curves and stuff, which is all possible. So, you know, building something like that.
So this is an asynchronous competition over 2 weeks, I think you said. How many participants do you think you're going to get?
Right now I have like 50 or so, 60 maybe signed up. We're looking to do more like a push. We're gonna like we're gonna advertise it like directly from our Foundry Twitter. So hopefully that gets a lot more engagement. I've been like directly reaching out to people or clubs that are like smaller, because I know that I probably have a pretty high hit rate with them, to actually like develop on it. But like Foundry has like 10 or 15,000 followers or something like that. So hopefully that kind of pushes it out a little more.
I know that you've been working also with, this is a long-standing, well, not long-standing, but longer than one semester anyway, project on your part, and you've been working with Peter on it. Are you gonna, are we gonna get to see the results of what happens on December the 1st? I mean, are you gonna report that out?
So it starts on, yeah, so it starts on December 1. It ends on December 14th.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll definitely like, I'm assuming, I don't really know when classes end, I guess, but like, regardless, I'll send out like an email thread with like top projects and my thoughts and recap and stuff like that.
Last question. So what's in it for Foundry? I mean, what is Foundry going to get out of this?
Yeah, of course. So ideally, like one, we could hire people out of it. That's kind of like the number one, is like a hiring pipeline. But the second one, that's not really a direct impact. Like we don't really see the value out of it like directly, but it has a pretty strong indirect impact. Is like, say someone actually does build a project on Near that really takes off, right? Like for example, like if the money market was built out good, it could probably easily draw in like a few $100 million of value locked into it. Like we've seen like over the past year, some high schoolers built out a project on Ethereum, and within like 8 months, it attracted $1 billion on it. So like if they built out something like that, that in say we even get like $200 million on it, it could really start driving value to the ecosystem. And obviously as a seed investor in Near, and operating infrastructure on it, we kind of have our interest aligned there.
Got it.
So.
Yeah, I can see that would be an interest to Foundries. Okay, Meg,
Yep.
It's over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Lucas, that was great. I really like that you've got student learning really at the forefront of your objectives for this project. And clearly that was one question I was going to ask is this going to, build a pipeline for Foundry? Has the company thought through in terms of where they go from, maybe the top 5 or the top 3 that you've indicated, where they go from there in terms of using it as a recruiting tool?
They haven't, but so since we have all their emails, we'll actually probably send out like an email to everyone that's participated, asking them to apply. And then like I'll also get like people's like private Discords and stuff. So if I really like the project or like their Twitter, I'll probably just like DM them directly and ask them. But yeah.
Okay. My other question is, so Foundry is a relatively young company. And obviously this is a relatively young technology. Do you think that contributes to a culture? I don't know what the culture is like at Foundry, but a culture that embraces an idea like this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We love it. Like, I mean, I think our average age is like 27 at the company. We've grown from 10 people in January 1 last year to like 75 this year.
Wow.
So we're like extremely fast moving, and like everyone's like on different levels. Everyone loves developing and stuff, at least on our engineering side. And yeah, like we participate in hackathons quite a bit, just between the engineers in the company. So
okay.
I actually initially set the prizes like lower. I don't know, like 1K and 2K or something like that. And then I sent it out to our CEO, and he just texts me and he's like, you gotta like triple those. I was like, okay. So they wanted to spend more money.
That's fantastic. All right. And then I guess my last question is, so I know you mentioned that you feel like student learning would increase with a longer time period versus like a 24-hour, quick. Have you seen
Definitely.
Have you seen any other examples of this, or is this something? I mean, it makes sense to me. And certainly, what I know about blockchain, to be honest with you, is what I've learned from you. So I don't know whether or not 2 weeks, makes sense for a project like this. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like traditionally, like literally almost any hackathon that you hear about is 24 to 48 hours, except for the fact that literally all blockchain hackathons are 2 weeks to 4 weeks, which is interesting. So like some of the major hackathons are put together by this collective called ETH Global, and they do the same thing. It's like 2 to 4 weeks async online. Just make your code open source, submit your GitHub link, and the reason is just like it's across tons and tons of time zones, because like, you know, crypto is pretty international.
Right.
And especially like when, like, for example, like if we were running like a hackathon that was just like build like a front end or a back end application, you're going to get a lot more developer interest in that because it's so broad and more people have those skills. But specifically when it's blockchain, you kind of silo yourself because there's way less people that are actually developing on it, right? So by expanding it internationally and over a longer time frame, you allow more people to enter. And then if it's brand new people entering, which is hopefully what is happening with this hackathon, you give them some lead time while it's still within the hackathon, so they don't feel like they're doing it on their own, to actually learn and understand the tooling.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, I'm really eager after the 14th to see what happens. So when it ends on the 14th, what happens then? Does it take you a while to determine the best project, and who's deciding that?
Yeah, so I think the 14th is like a Tuesday or something like that. Maybe it's a Wednesday. But we actually have a company like retreat the next day. So we'll probably be judging either that night, like the 14th night, or on the 16th. And we'll just pick out like the 3 prizes projects, and then we'll just like DM the people directly, figure out, you know, their payment and stuff, obviously. Ideally we just pay them in crypto, but like I don't know, like we'll see. It would be easier from our side, but we might just like wire it to them, I guess. And then from there we'll also follow up with everybody on hiring, and then we'll probably tweet out the best projects as well. And yeah, and then hopefully I'm gonna like take this and kind of like package it up with my learnings and stuff, and then give it to our company, so we can do it like every quarter, or, you know, every year or something like that. So
That's great. That's great that you'll have I think probably through designing this project, you'll have a repeatable, scalable project that you can continue to run. So great job. I know Peter's got has had his hands up, so we'll let him ask or comment. Or hi, Peter.
Hi, good morning, Lucas. Congratulations to getting
Morning.
to this point. I know it's been a while. I really have kind of 2 questions for you. One, Meg said the word scalable, and I think that's what's been kind of in my mind. You talked about having 50, 60 students now, or I'm sorry, participants now. I'm still thinking about it from a teacher's perspective. And I realize this isn't an issue of needing space and physical resources, but what if you get 1,000 people who sign up by next week? Do you have the ability to actually judge and evaluate 1,000 individual projects?
yeah, so 1,000 projects would be a ton, like if there was actually 1,000 submissions. So the thing to note with like a normal hackathon is like if you physically have 1,000 people like there, you're probably going to get like 950 submissions. In an online hackathon, if there's 1,000 people, you're probably going to get like 500 submissions. But even at that, 500 submissions would be a lot to comb through. So at that point, I would probably like, I'm not planning on judging. I don't know if I went over the judges. I'm not planning on judging the hackathon. I'm planning on having other engineers in my company do it, which really, like, depending on how many projects it is, it might just be like 1 or 2 of them. But if it was 500, I would probably judge and give it to like 5 or 6 other engineers as well, and just space it out.
So my second question is, you know, everybody seems to have a good idea of how to use this technology for financial purposes, but there's always this thread about, well, Web 3.0 as a general umbrella of areas where the technology could be expanded in other markets, but nobody seems to ever come up with an actually good idea. What is, at least in your estimation, what's the use of this technology outside of finance?
Yeah, so I mean, like, supply chain's been touted forever, right? But the one that I'm actually excited for, which like kind of like pretty wildly, like I don't understand why, has not taken off, even though all the technology is there, is decentralized identity, or DID. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking like at least internally, we've also been making bets and stuff on this, is like within the next 2-ish years, it's going to take off. But essentially just like, you know, how Google really made a moat for itself when you can just click sign in with Google on literally every website. Same thing with Facebook or, you know, whatever. So hopefully that like in the future, it's just like sign in Web3 or sign in with Ethereum or something like that. And you can just sign in with your account. A lot of like Web3 applications already do this, obviously, but like we haven't seen it like integrated with like Web2 applications. But it's better from literally every aspect. You own your own data. It's quicker. There's no password that you have to deal with because it just signs with your private key. It's you know, it's great. Like you don't have to worry about like signing into a sketchy website and then them like not salting your password in their database or something, because you know that it's already encrypted. Yeah, so I think DID is the big one.
Great. Well, I would agree with you. I think that's probably a big area for growth. Well, I apologize. I have to run because I have another student now waiting, but congratulations to you and everybody else for getting to this point.
No worries. Thanks for the help as well.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Peter. One last question for you, Lucas. Is your company, is it mostly does it have a lot of RIT students, or is it, or RIT graduates, or is it
Let's see.
national or what?
We have 3 RIT interns. I mean, I'm not a graduate, but like I work full time. So like I'll be a graduate in a month, I guess.
Yeah.
Then we have 4 graduates that work full time.
Okay. So you
And-
presumably geography probably doesn't mean a whole lot with a company like Foundry, right? I mean,
So-
are you all over the place?
Yeah, so we are all over the place, but we have like a solid like 35 people in Rochester, but we have people in Brazil, Portugal, like London, Oklahoma. We have a ton of people in the city, like in New York. So yeah, like it can be pretty remote. A lot of us, like, we also like travel a ton. Like we had people in Dubai last week, and like I was in Portugal like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's pretty like fluid.
Okay. I hope you like Lisbon. Lisbon's a great city.
It was fantastic.
Yeah,
It was
really.
fantastic.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks to you, Lucas, and
Okay.
thanks to you, Erin and Brian. Great presentations. And we, I guess Meg has to tell you about the papers that you still hold.
Yes, so just a reminder, if you are on campus and participating in the Capstone Symposium, that you need to have your size 24x36 PDF of your poster submitted. And then just a reminder that you have 2 papers, the reflection and the product paper. They can both be submitted to the same Dropbox. And I'm assuming all 3 of you are finishing up in December or January here. Great job, best of luck, and do stay in touch with us and let us know how things are going. But we'll see you all on December 2nd. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
guys.
Thank you.
You stay on, Meg?
Yes.